I am going to talk about the football in just a second, and I'm going to deal with a lot of the comments about West Ham hemorrhaging money and about Issa Diop and a few of the players surrounding that. Before I do, I just want to wish everybody a very, very happy new year. And I mean it. And when I say I mean it, I don't mean there's people wishing you a happy new year that don't mean it. I just mean I sincerely mean it. I really, really mean it, if you know what I mean. And let me just explain myself. I'm not a great celebrator of New Year. I like Christmas because Christmas is funny. It's great for the kids and the presents and the break and eating well. But I think since I was maybe a teenager or in my early 20s, not particularly celebrated New Year. I don't understand the big fuss of the calendar ticking over from the 31st of December to the 1st of January. What actually changes? I don't know why people make New Year's resolutions. If you want to start jogging in November. Don't wait until the 1st of January to do it, or whatever the case may be. I've been a bit of a Grinch, or a little bit of a grump with it. However, I think slightly different now, and I think if I've ever been pleased to see the back of a number, it's now, and that number's obviously 2020, because it's been an absolutely horrendous year, and I'm just hoping, and I'm perhaps a little bit optimistic with because of news in recent days, that things are going to get a little bit better, and there is some good news, some light at the end of the tunnel, some good news on the horizon, let's say, because it has been, whether you've been impacted slightly by it or majorly. I mean, majorly is you've lost a loved one during this. You know, not even just maybe lost a loved one due to COVID-19. Maybe you've lost a loved one, you've not been able to be with them in hospital at a time when they needed you. Maybe you've just been, because of the restrictions in hospital, somebody you know's fallen sick and you've not been able to travel to hospital with them. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people have lost 20% of their income or whatever. And maybe it's just a case of you've not been able to go on holiday, go to the cinema, go out for a bite to eat, meet up with your friends, meet up with your family. It has had some impact on everybody. And because of that, it has been an unprecedented year. And I'm not going to go into the implications that it's had on football. We all know those. But I just mean in terms of today, I was talking about it with Gio last night, and we sincerely we sincerely wish you a very, very happy new year from everybody on Hammers Chat. As far as it's gone with videos over the year and whatnot. Look, thanks for tuning in. I've said it before. I get a lot of messages on here saying thanks for the uploads, and they've given us something to watch during lockdown. I back at you, basically. It's given me something to do, and I always enjoy the discourse that it throws up, certainly. And I've been lucky enough to just read some lovely comments on an absolute daily basis, which is really what this video is all about. Even though I've taken 3 minutes to wish you a happy new year, but I do sincerely mean it. I really hope for all of us, for me and for you, that 2020, it's got to be better 2021, hasn't it? It just has to be. In terms of the video and the comments here, I just want to read out a few of your comments based on yesterday's video. Yesterday's video was about the situation that Issa Diop finds himself in, and I went on to the wider subject, didn't I, that we just seem to lose money hand over fist on a lot of these players, and particularly our record signings. Record signings seems to be something that we seem to get wrong, and even going back to some, I mean, you could go back even further. Other people will give me other examples. But sort of, if we go look at Sullivan's reign, Golden Sullivan and Brady's reign, the Matt Jarvis one, when that was 13 million, I think that never really worked out. And he was all right, don't be wrong. He didn't do a bad job for us, but it didn't work out in the way that I think everybody hoped. I can't remember if Andy Carroll was the record signing up. It was 17, 18 million. I think he might have been. You have to say, even though he gave us some good times, Andy Carroll, it didn't really work out. We lost money again, a lot of money, left on a free, didn't they? Spent over half his West Ham career injured, and they were unavailable, and a lot of those games were him trying to get back to fitness as well. Andre Ayew was a funny one. Lost money on him, didn't we? And we sort of bought him without having a position for him. I remember Sullivan going on the news and on Sky Sports News and saying that he was going to spend £25 million on a striker. He was going to get a striker in, and I don't know if he mentioned Jamie Vardy or it was just sort of linked that he would go and get Jamie Vardy, but it never really happened. We bought Andre Ayew, who was neither a striker, not quite quick enough to be a winger. Had done really well at Swansea, hadn't he? You sort of got the impression that he played well against us for Bilic against Swansea. It was really the game, one of the last few games at Upton Park, and I actually did a vlog for that day, and I think they beat us 4-0 or 4-1. It was the end of our European hopes. We went into that game still with hopes of Champions League football, and he sort of scuppered it. I just sort of wonder if we bought Ayew because he played well in that game. He had a good season, saying that. So it's actually record signings, full stop, in recent years that we seem to get wrong. And there've been a few people that have thrown up examples of signings that have been okay, but I've really been talking. I'm talking about the big money. We seem to lose big money, and almost sort of 50%. And so I just want to pull up a few of your comments that you sent me and just answer them, really. So I think I picked out 6 comments here. The first one is from Sonny Anderson. I tell you what, Sonny, that is a good footballer's name, my friend. Not the Anderson bit, but there's been other good Andersons, hasn't there? Don't worry about him. Sonny says, whichever club Diop ends up at will develop him into the player we all know he can be, the player we should have developed him into. Such a waste. Well, when I read that, I couldn't help but agree with it, really. You do get that worry, don't you, I think, as a West Ham fan, that when you lose a player, he's going to go on and achieve his potential elsewhere and go on to bigger and better things. That player in Diop that Jose Mourinho described it as a monster, the player that Manchester United really wanted, it's always suspected that they're going to leave West Ham and go on to be the players that they should have been at West Ham. And let's be perfectly honest, it won't be the first or last time that it's happened. Next comment was from Lee Marks. And Lee Marks said, Diop is still young enough to develop and improve. However, I think Moyes wants and needs players that he knows can perform now, not adjust over a season or so. Our squad is too small and stretched. Rotation is the key to success. I think you're absolutely right there, Lee. Moyes wants players now. And I wouldn't mind. I mean, if you remember yesterday, I gave the example of Haksabanovic. What was he? 3.7 million possibly. Who else did we discuss? There were a couple of other players who were younger players. Tony Martinez. To a lesser extent, Sam Byram, who were all bought for south of 5 million. And I think when you cost that amount of money, you can have that development. You can, like you said, Lee, Diop is still young enough to develop and improve. You don't mind the improvement. I think when you spend 23 million, whilst Manchester United or Real Madrid can spend £23 million on a player for potential, West Ham can't. When West Ham spend 23 million, you've got to be first team ready. And I think that is the problem there. Next one is from Pavel. Great point here. He's talking about the wider picture of Haller, Anderson and Diop. Well, clearly is because he mentions Haller, and he said, problem is not the selling price, but the buying price. All English teams overpay. Haller's real price never was 45 million. I mean, he's not wrong, is he? He's not wrong. You do get the impression that had other clubs gone in to buy him that weren't English, then Haller's price might have been closer to, I don't know, to 30 million or something like that. I'm sure there's a few will argue, yeah, even worth 30 million. But I get Pavel's point. I certainly think it's the case with Felipe Anderson as well. We knew when we were buying him from Italy, because we heard from the fans over there that he was inconsistent. He could blow hot and cold. Well, why are we paying our record transfer for an inconsistent player? You pay your record transfer for something that's guaranteed, for something that's nailed on. You pay £10 million, possibly, for an inconsistent winger, but not 35, 36 million pounds. So I think he's right. I think we do overpay, and I think we've overpaid on a couple of occasions. This is from Ian Watkins, and Ian says Rice costs nothing, so when sold, that would balance out the bad transfers. Well, firstly, Ian, I think you're absolutely right. It would balance out the bad transfers. But I tell you what, you're really putting a lot of pressure on your academy to produce players that yield tens of millions of pounds to offset your bad dealings when you purchase players. Basically, your selling of your academy stars has to offset your bad purchasing. Well, that's unsustainable, and I think you're right. But it should never be that. I said this when we sold, when we bought Thomas Repka in. Now, Thomas Repka, if you remember, was a centre half, came from Fiorentina. I said, well, Thomas Repka should have been brought in to play alongside Rio Ferdinand. And this is the point. Declan Rice shouldn't be sold to cover the cost of Issa Diop and the losses of Haller and the losses of Anderson. That money, that 100 million or whatever it is that was spent on those, I think it is over 100 million on those three players, should have been the 100 million that really persuaded Declan Rice to stay around a bit longer. The 100 million that builds a team around Declan Rice. You don't want to have to sell Declan Rice to pay for the bad financial management of recruiting those three players. But I know what you mean, and you are right. In terms of money, that's right, but we can't rely on this. Actually, what you want to do is produce good youngsters and buy well. That's buy well sounds like the name of a player, actually, doesn't it? Buy well Dembele. Oh, he's a player, that one. Tony Morland. He said, "Listen, this is interesting. I hadn't even thought of this, not remotely. Maybe Diop is still suffering from COVID. Long COVID as it is known. He has seemed sluggish." He goes on to say more. Sorry, I've clipped the quote there. And not there's anything wrong with the quote. It was a really good point. Well, this is interesting actually, because my wife works in a hospital, as I bore you with constantly. There are a lot of people. It's funny actually. You sort of only really hear from the people that go in with COVID, pay the ultimate price, or those that go in and get COVID and then they're fully recovered. There are a whole lot of people, and we know somebody, by the way, that go and get COVID, and then it ruins them for a long time. I know someone that's got COVID, literally lives 2 roads away, got COVID, had COVID, got out. He says he's even struggling. He was a bricklayer, really active guy. He says he even struggles to climb the stairs now without being out of breath. He said it's taken a massive toll on his lungs. And he even said to me the other day, he said, I even wonder if my lungs are ever going to be properly as they were. So I don't. That is a really interesting one there. Actually, don't rule that out. There may be something in that, and maybe that is the most obvious answer to what we've said. Obviously, it doesn't. It really doesn't tell the tale, the full message of what I was saying, which is we don't recruit particularly well in terms of buying big money players. But in Diop's individual case, I think it's certainly worth bearing in mind. Last but not least is from Dom, who's my showbiz name. He said, one issue is probably our fear of selling players when they're hot. 50-60 million for Diop talked about after his first season. Similar money talked about for Anderson. Values are overinflated. We seem to buy when the stock is high and sell when it's low. We need to stop allowing selling clubs to take us for a ride. I mean, he's going on to what was said before about, was it Pavel possibly, who said we overpay for players anyway. I think that's a really, really good point, actually. We didn't sell when the stock was high. In trading Wall Street terms, we're pretty crap, aren't we? Let's be fair. At that point, I know he's talking about Jose Mourinho talked him up, and then it was rumoured that Man United might have been sniffing around for 50 million quid, and we publicly told them to get lost. Now, I guess in terms of the board, yeah, it's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because if they'd have sold Diop for 50 million quid, we'd have all said, what are you doing? What are you doing selling out our most promising young defender for? But I do think he's got an absolute point there. But I also do believe that the lack of continuity of manager has been a hindrance for us, because a well-run club, they will know that the next manager to come in will use the same type of players as the previous manager. I'm not saying that, what's his name, Espirito Santos from Wolves is going anywhere anytime soon. But you do get the impression with Wolves that when he does go, the next manager to come in will have a similar philosophy. You do feel that they won't be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That he will like a lot of the players that are already at Wolves. Wolves aren't going to get rid of him and then suddenly bring Big Sam in, who's going to want to start hoofing the ball around. So I think that plays a massive part into your recruitment. You're not just recruiting for the current manager, you're recruiting for the club. And for you to do that, your club has to have an ethos, you have to be running a steady ship, and you have to have a continuity and a structure around the club that is scouting, that is training ground, all of those things. Thanks very much for those comments. I've only picked out 6, but there's 6 sort of different ones. But there are a lot of you in the comments who said things very, very similar to what the six amigos, if you want to call them, what the 6 lovely Hammers Chat subscribers said in the video. I presume I hope you're all subscribed. If you're not subscribed, by the way, then maybe now is a good time to do so. I spoke to somebody who is a subscriber today, actually, on the phone, and he said to me he wasn't getting the notifications. So I just reminded him to press subscribe and then press the bell. If you press the bell, you get the notifications. I think for the notification to sound, you might need your YouTube notifications switched on your phone, but you might not want. I upload every day. You might not want your phone pinging every day I upload. In which case, don't touch the bell. Anyway, that's me done. It's a happy new year to one and all. Everton game up later on today, unless it gets stopped because of COVID. Interesting one for Moyes, by the way. Really interesting one for Moyes. We did the preview, and I sort of forgot that Moyes used to manage Everton. So Moyes will be wanting to prove his worth, I think, to the Everton fans, who probably know his worth perfectly well already. The other thing that is worth noting, the other dynamic to this fixture, is that David Moyes was, I think he was in line. If you remember, we both were managerless at the same time, West Ham and Everton. And David Moyes apparently went for an interview at Everton. He was about to get the job right until Carlo Ancelotti became available. Then they said, "Oh, sorry, Moisey, we're taking Carlo." Moisey ended up at our place. I don't know how true that is. It's just a story. It's a good story. If it is true, that's got to put a bit of fire under the old not under the what's it, but a bit of fire in the belly, hasn't it? I even want fire. Nobody wants fire under the old what's it, do they? Anyway, look. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for sticking with us all year. I appreciate it so much. Me and Gio pinch ourselves, which is better than... We can't pinch each other because of the COVID. But we really appreciate it. And I bet everyone's tuned out by now. Anyway, I'm probably just talking to myself. But just in case anybody is listening, thank you, one and all. And here is to a much bigger, better, brighter, and one with more freedom 2021, and a win against Everton, of course.